ethical and entrepreneurial leaders for Africa, Juroplus, where Juroplus goes, water flows, Star Assurance, your solid partner, Rehoboth Properties, Heaven Mosquito Spray and Coil, pleasant on humans, tough nightmare on insects, and Napa Foods. It's tasty. So the NDC now has to convince us more than ever why they reject the election results. Let's listen to President Mahama. He spoke to the VOA and gave the reasons why they still reject the results. And even though he's peace-loving, he has a reason not to concede at this point. We'll also hear from John Boedu and then Angela Dwamena Boaji, as well as the president of the National House of Chiefs. Let's hear these four persons: President Mahama, John Boedu, Angela Dwamena Boaji, and Ojia Hoho Yao Jebi the second.
And we are currently doing a forensic audit of all the constituencies. First, to establish what happened there, and then secondly, to reconfirm the figures that we have. Because this case might end up in court, I don't know. I cannot mention anything for now, but we're doing an audit, and based on that, we'll take whatever decision we need to take. But I think that the incompetence the EC has shown, it will be useful for us to do a forensic audit of the EC's own systems and the numbers to come to what the final number for the EC is. Because as of now, I don't know what number they're going to gazette.
People are saying you have proven that you are a true Democrat. They said, why are you not doing the same thing now?
In the interest of the more than 6 million people who voted for me, I must uphold our democracy and hold our Electoral Commission to higher standards and hold this government to a higher standard in terms of our democracy. I mean, the way they've conducted this election, the government, President Akufo-Addo, and the Electoral Commission, is a dent to our democratic credentials as a government. And so, in my principles as a Democrat, I can't be seen to be sweeping it under the carpet and just letting it go. I think that we must bring closure to this by seeing exactly, where the issues are. And I mean, if an independent audit is done by the EC, we bring somebody in to crunch the numbers, do an independent audit. If I lost, why not? I mean, I'll be the first to concede and, walk away. But as long as that is not done, and I know that there was a deliberate attempt to subvert the will of the people in favor of the incumbent, it will be wrong for me in terms of our democratic practices to just leave it, because we will not learn the lessons of this election. I think that we must learn the lessons of this election so that we don't repeat it in a future.
It's absolutely carrying out demonstrations and going to court are not mutually exclusive nor contradictory. Legal recourse may be pursued even as peaceful demonstrations are carried out. Therefore, we join the voices of the sections of the public to urge the NDC to present their concerns to the courts for legal redress. We wish to emphasize in this regard that going to court does not amount to a lost cause. We fully appreciate that the aggrieved parties may be concerned over the length of time required in pursuing court cases, and the fact that during this time, the processes of swearing in the president and parliamentarians will take place, seemingly bringing their case to naught. We wish, therefore, to explain that the Constitution indeed provides a tight schedule of statutory dates for the swearing in of the elected president and parliamentarians. This schedule will have to be followed in order that the entire system of governance does not come to a standstill, leading to a constitutional crisis. There is absolutely no doubt in anybody's mind that Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo won the 2020 poll emphatically and without doubt. No amount of whining
can change that. Ladies and gentlemen of the media, it is important to state that John Dramani Mahama had from the onset declared his intention to reject the result of the election. He has impugned the integrity of the EC since the beginning of the year and signaled his unwillingness to accept the results of the poll. So we all know that he is playing according to a script. And we know that the purpose of his effusions is to cut the sympathy of the NDC to put him up again as their presidential candidate in 2024. Well, it is entirely up to him. He said in 2016 that it is elementary politics and an old trick for people who know they are losing an election to seek to impugn the integrity of the EC. That's what he said in 2012. That when people are losing elections, then they start to impugn the integrity of the Electoral Commission. I don't know what he's doing now. It's exactly the same thing that he's doing. But what is strange is the unwillingness of candidate Mahama to go to appropriate forum to make his case. For why, in spite of scoring a poor 47.3% of the vote, he should be handed over the presidency. His logic beggars belief. That is his logic. The presidency is not his exclusive right to own.
Elections all over the world have never been perfect. But then we live in a world of compromises. So we are asking them to compromise and then especially speak to their followers and calm down on the demonstrations and in some cases destruction of property.
Do you think that there is heightened tension in the country?
Otherwise, we will not issue this statement. Because if some people are aggrieved and they are not shouting for nothing, they know what probably they have seen. So we are approaching them to speak to them to calm down.
Right. So, Sami, last week Ibrahim Mutala was on this show and I kept asking him to show us the evidence. Unfortunately, my questions were misinterpreted. Can you show us, so that we all can follow the NDC, why it is justified for you to continue to be on the streets and refuse to accept the results?
Thank you very much, Sansa. First of all, even before I do that, let me make the point that President Mahama, through his many years of service to this country in different positions, has demonstrated to be a peace-loving, patriotic Democrat. He's won elections before, and when his opponent challenged the outcome of that election, he allowed the due process to prevail. He lost elections as an incumbent president. He graciously accepted defeat, and even before the results in that election, that is 2016, were declared, he called his opponent, congratulated him, and supervised a smooth transition of power. And so the man we are talking about, John Dramani Mahama, is a consummate Democrat. The NDC that he belongs to, the NDC that he leads, is a party that believes in democracy. And so if indeed we lost the 2020 elections, we would have accepted the results so that the nation may progress. But unfortunately, we did not lose the presidential and parliamentary elections, which were conducted few days ago. The evidence shows that the outcome of the election as declared by the EC chairperson, G. Mensah, is not the true outcome, is not the true verdict of the people, but a stolen verdict and a fraudulent outcome, which we must reject.
Now show us.
Now, the first reason why we take this position is because of evidence of widespread padding of votes in favor of the presidential candidate of the New Patriotic Party that we have uncovered through our audit of the presidential results.
What does that mean?
Widespread padding of
mean?
votes in favor of candidate Akufo-Addo. This padding happened...
For those of you who are watching the television, you can see the NDC's analysis that we are projecting to you.
Yes. So this pattern happened mainly at constituency coalition centers, where polling station results recorded on the faces of the statement of poll, what we call the pink sheets, are aggregated. So you realize that in aggregating the polling station votes, additional votes, or let me say more votes, are added to the votes of candidate Akufo-Addo in some cases, and votes deducted from the votes of candidate John Dramani Mahama.
At what stage? Polling station or what?
At the constituency coalition center, where polling station results are being aggregated. So the aggregate figure, which has been declared by the EC, is not reflective of the true outcome because it's been padded. More votes have been added to the votes of candidate Akufo-Addo, and in some cases, votes have been deducted from Mahama's vote.
Right.
So
this padding, you're still talking about padding?
Yes, still padding.
Okay.
The second thing is that in some cases, President Mahama's votes have been padded. But President Akufo-Addo's votes have been padded with relatively more votes.
Okay.
So the net effect of that is padding in favor of candidate Akufo-Addo.
And so this happened at the coalition centers.
Yeah, exactly. Now, let me give you a few examples.
So your officers signed and agreed to the results as declared at the polling station.
Yes.
But at the coalition centers, where you are talking about this padding, they didn't object.
In some cases, our party agents at the constituency coalition centers did not sign. In some cases...
How many cases, for example?
I mean, we are talking about hundreds, so I can't give you a specific example, a number in terms of where we did not sign, where we signed. But I know that in some cases, there were clear objections we didn't sign.
So far,
in other cases,
we have not been
signed.
told of any polling station, with the exception of the Ayensuano results, which affected the results for the, is it Esikado Kitam?
Yeah.
Right. Apart from that, we have not been told of any situation where your officers refuse to sign the coalition.
You see, the signing of coalition sheets is one issue. The legal effect of that can be debated. But what we are interrogating now is the padding of votes. So the question is, was there padding or there was no padding?
But if there is padding, you don't sign.
No, but you see, padding does not vitiate the fact that, I mean, signing a pink sheet or a coalition sheet does not vitiate the fact that there was padding.
So they didn't know about the padding at the time they signed?
Let's go step by step. Some knew and refused to sign. Some didn't know because of the way the coalition was done.
Can we have one example of those who knew and refused to sign?
Gushegu.
Gushegu?
Yes, in Gushegu.
Okay.
In Gushegu, if you look at, and I came here with a constituency coalition form, I can give you a photocopy of that. You realize that the EC's own constituency coalition form, this is it. This is a photocopy of this. They've recorded polling station results that candidate Akufo-Addo had. And in totaling that, in aggregating that, they declared that candidate Akufo-Addo got 4,766 votes. So what we simply did was to take a calculator and add the figures ourselves. When we added these figures here, we got 3,866 votes, and not 4,766 as declared by candidate Akufo-Addo. This is one of the coalition sheets.
Okay.
There are more. And so on this coalition sheet alone, 900 votes have been added illegally to the votes of candidate Akufo-Addo. Now we came to John Dramani Mahama. These are the votes the EC themselves gave him. We took a calculator, aggregated the votes. We didn't get the total the EC got, which is 3,972. Rather, we got 4,072, meaning that 100 votes have been deducted from the votes of candidate Mahama. This is their own document. We have not even disputed these entries. We have simply aggregated the entries, yet we are getting different totals. So in Gushegu alone, candidate Akufo-Addo has benefited, from pardon to the tune of about 1,000 votes in the presidential. That's Gushegu. Now, there are other examples. If you look at Edreso constituency, when you total all the results the MPP got, and we have done it here, we have all the polling stations, 206 of them. You total all the polling station results for candidate Akufo-Addo. He gets 69,297, but the EC declared 69,399. So you realize pardon of 102. In the same Edgeworth constituency, John Dramani Mahama was given 14,500 by the EC. But when we added his votes from all the 206 polling stations, he got 14,617. So it means 117 votes have been deducted from his votes. The net effect is pardon of 219 votes in favor of candidate Akufo-Addo. You come to Akrema Kwangoma, also in the Ashanti region, the MPP stronghold. You realize that the EC gave candidate Akufo-Addo 77,487 votes. We did our own aggregation of the polling station results.
Using the
pink sheets, the statement of poll. And what we got was 77,152. So you realize that 335 votes have been added to candidate Akufo-Addo's votes. But when you come to candidate Mahama, when we aggregated his votes, we got 15,290 votes. Yet the EC declared for him 14,963. 337 votes deducted from his votes. And this is a systematic phenomenon, widespread. We are not just talking about isolated cases. We've seen hundreds of such examples.
Yet you have only few instances where your officers objected or didn't sign.
In some cases, not few. In some cases, our officers didn't sign. In other cases, they signed. But let me even deal with where they signed. You see,
at this point, you don't know the exact number of polling stage collation centers where your officers did not sign.
You see, the fact that a polling station, a party agent of the NDC signed a collation sheet will not make 1 + 1 equal to 3.
I understand that.
You understand? It will not justify a situation where 1 + 1 is equal to 3.
That's clearly understood.
Yes.
Your officers, you see the process we are going through. I suppose it's very helpful to our audience.
Very, very.
Now,
very.
Your officers would have their own pink sheets.
Yeah.
When they get to the polling collation center, they would have done their own tabulation and known the exact number. So when the tabulation is done at the collation center and the numbers are not adding up, they will object.
And you see, that is what ought to be. Okay? We are all lawyers. That is what the ideal situation is supposed to be. But we have seen evidence in these elections where collation was not done in accordance with the law and what it ought to have been. So you have a situation where we have had reports from our like what happened in Takwa, where the EC's own collation, the Excel collation they were doing on the screen showed that the NDC had won. The MPP came in with soldiers and tags and said they will not accept, let's do manual collation. Succeeded in swapping pink sheets. After manual collation, they had a different results from what the EC had already done on the screen and said the MPP had won. We objected, they pointed guns at them, you either sign or you leave, and so we left. We've seen these, you saw the scenes at Techim, and it was widespread. And so at this stage, one cannot blame
the EC.
One cannot blame polling agents. Certainly, the blame has to go to the EC because they did these tabulations.
If your officer certifies at the constituency collation center, and also you have the regional center, and your officers also confirm or endorse the results there. So far, there is only one place for the regional that we know that there was not an endorsement. Correct? So if they have endorsed, and the EC chair who sits in Accra only looks at the evidence on the paper. So you cannot blame the EC.
But the point here is not whether or not somebody should be blamed. The point here is whether or not the results as declared by the EC reflects the true outcome of the election. We are demonstrating to you that when you aggregate the EC's own figures, you realize that the votes that have been given to candidate Akufo-Addo are not correct, and that those votes have been pardoned.
So let's do
that. Is number one.
You said three main points. You have done.
In fact, there are 4.
Next.
Let's do the second one has to do with widespread evidence of widespread overvoting. Widespread overvoting. Overvoting. And here, I'm talking about situations where ballot total vote cast exceeds ballots issued.
Right.
So the EC issues, say, 500 ballots to a polling station. But at the end of the election, you realize that total vote cast is 510, meaning that there's been foreign materials, there's been ballot stuffing, overvoting of 10 votes. The law says in such cases, the results must be annulled. Now, something very strange happened at the SDA primary Shira 1 polling station in the Sunyani West constituency. I came here, I realized that the EC has issued a statement on that, so I came here with all the evidence we need. There is a register for the polling station we were given, all political parties were given. Something you can check, it has 49 voters. SDA primary school Shira 1. Now, this is the ballot statistics we were given. How many ballot papers did the EC send there? 49 plus 5%, 51. And so they gave them 60 ballot papers. Now you take the statement of pool. What happened there is that 468 ballots were issued. 466 people voted at the polling station where you have only 49 voters and only 60 ballots issued to the station per the EC's own ballot statistics. Then you come to the other cases of overvoting. At our press conference, I just showed 10, but I indicated that we have thousands of cases of overvoting. This is Fomena, Methodist Primary School, Akko Kerifie. Ballots issued, 554. Total vote cast, 555. You come to the same Fomena, Salvation Army Church polling station.
And for those of you who are watching, please follow Sami as you will have on the television. It's in your shot. That's what he's going through.
Yes. So there's the ballot statistics. You see that clearly they were given 60 ballots, and yet you check the results, 466 people voted. Now, still on overvoting, Salvation Army Church in Fomena, ballots issued 371, total vote cast 373. Then you come to Bekwai, Dominacy MAJHS, ballots issued 564, total vote cast 567. Then you come to New Edubiase, ballots issued, Methodist Primary School, New Edubiase, ballots issued 390, ballots in the box, total vote cast 393. I can go on and on and on overvoting. What accounted for this? What accounted for this, Samson, is that right from the onset, the EC had given the MPP an illegal advantage to cheat, because they had given them official ballot papers stamped with their official validation stamp. And that is why on election day in Egreso, at Circle, at Asawase, we caught MPP supporters with bags full of already tam-printed ballot papers, which all had the EC validation stamp. And that was the first time something like that was happening
what's
in the history of this country.
Whether what you found somebody holding got into the ballot box.
The evidence that what they were holding got into the ballot box is because of these cases of overvoting, where the ballots in the box exceed the ballots issued to the police.
So quickly summarize your next 2 points.
Now the next one has to do with the absence of entries of persons who were verified by the BVD when they were voting. Regulation 32 of CI 127 is clear. Sub-regulation 4, sub-regulation 5 and 6. That any voter who comes to the polling station to vote shall go through biometric verification. And when the person is rejected, a form must be filled, a certain process must be followed to allow the person to vote through manual verification. Now, the law provides, that is, if you check the measures, Form 8A, the law provides that at the close of poll, even before counting begins, the EC official at the polling station should press on a button, the F2 button on the BVD.
That's right.
And record the total number of persons who were verified by the BVD and those verified manually. Why is that important? To check that there's not been any overvoting, no multiple voting, no impersonation, and so on.
So what's it?
In 40% of the over 38,000 polling stations in this country, there were no entries of persons verified by the BVD on the faces of pink sheets. I came here with a couple of them. I will share them with you when we are done. I have more than 100 here. In fact, there are constituencies where there are no BVD entries, which makes it impossible for you to detect overvoting through multiple voting or impersonation.
Example of such constituencies?
So this is Ashanti region, Ahafwano West. Okay. and I came with the originals. Tell your people not to bring
sheets.
tax here to come for that. Tell them. These are. Look at the stamp. No entry of persons. You see, it should have been printed like it was done in 2016. They didn't. They decided to use stamps. So persons verified to vote. Nothing here.
Has your agent signed?
Oh, hold on.
Yeah, that's right.
This is it. No BVD entries. Hold on. No BVD entries. No. So, and this is, we are talking about.
Let me get the camera.
Yes.
Get the camera.
Exactly.
To capture.
And my brother. So let's hold on. Let
me do my job. Now, this is where Sami Jemfi is talking about where the entry ought to have been made, and he says the entry is not there. As you can see, there's a stamp, but there's no the entry.
So we are talking about more than 10,000 pink sheets.
Yes, but as Afenyo marking is saying, you can see on this pink sheet, all those involved have signed. If you look at the next pink sheet, of course, the two contenders have also signed, even though the entry that Sami is looking for
has not been done. That is what the law says.
Has not been done. So if you look at them,
they have all not been
no entry, but the officers.
And let me deal with the bats.
Okay, the officers. They have signed all of these.
Because I have limited
but the entries have not been.
Let me deal with the issue of signing. You see, the law says.
I'll be frank with you. I didn't know people can bring pink sheets to the studio. I was told that I should never ask for that.
Because people are saying that, I mean, we don't have the evidence and all that. So I think this is where the risk. But the point I'm making here is that the law says that when you verify people with a biometric machine, record it on the face of the pink sheet.
All right.
You can't say that because the polling agent, which Dr. Bawumia describes as an exalted observer, has signed it, then it means that that violation of the law is regularized.
That's right.
You understand? So that is something that will be dealt with at appropriate forum. But the final point has to do on presidential, has to do with the patent statistical flaws in the EC's own results. And something that is scandalous. I have never seen that happen in any democracy. That elections will be conducted, results will be declared by the electoral management body. The first declaration is found out to be mathematically flawed because the percentages exceed 100%.
Right.
Something is important.
No, that's not a new issue.
No,
we wanted you to bring us new things.
No, it's new.
And
because the results have been gazetted. I want to show you.
It's not new because we are all familiar with those.
Let's talk about the gazetted results. The gazetted results. So the point is that she declared results on the 9th, amended it on the 10th, but the one she gazetted on the 15th of December is different from what she corrected. So if you compare the results the EC declared on the 10th via their press release. So for example,
the Gazette doesn't contain numbers.
No, attached to that, because they will say given under my hands so and so. That is a notification, but the results itself is attached to that. Now you come here, Gazette for say GPP, 5,575, the GPP presidential candidate. The 10th statement, I'm not using the 9th, the 10th statement gave the GPP 6,000 and something votes. You compare all the figures of 8 presidential candidates, the figures are different.
All right.
And so you have three different sets of results.
Thank you.
For the presidential elections we just
Thank you.
And that is why we are saying that we will be doing a great disservice to Ghana.
Thank you.
And posterity will not forgive us.
I need you to recognize something.
I need you to recognize
something. I've given you sufficient time.
Oh, I'm done.
Right, thank you. Now, I ask you one question. I need a response in 30 seconds. Then I can go to my other guest.
I'll try.
You know that as a lawyer, one of the cases that almost every lawyer now is familiar with and deals with is the in-re presidential election petition, as in the matter that came up in 2012, and we took 8 months to finish in the Supreme Court. You have referred to that already. Thankfully, this time, the court will take 42 days to finish a case in the Supreme Court. Now, the Supreme Court, and I'm holding the report, it's a special report. When they finished, this is how they held the case. Dismissing by unanimous decision the petitioner's claims relating to duplicate serial numbers, duplicate polling station codes, unknown polling stations, 3 heads. All the judges agreed that those were frivolous. They threw the petitioners out. Then, dismissing by a 5-4 majority decision the petitioner's claims based on overvoting. You are speaking about what? Overvoting, correct?
Yes.
Right. There were 5 judges who dismissed the petitioner's claims in that issue, and there were 4 judges who held that there actually had been overvoting.
Yeah.
So you would recall that some of the judges actually annulled votes and ordered for a rerun of the elections in certain places, where, for example, Justice Doche sought to kick out as many as 5,000 votes or so, which would have meant in the end that, you know, President Mahama would not have gotten more than 50%. I'm using this to ask you one simple question. Now, 3, dismissing by a 5-4 majority decision the petitioner's claim based on absence of signature of presiding officers on the pink sheets. And finally, dismissing by 5-4 majority the petitioner's claim based on voting without biometric verification. You have 2 of your major issues: overvoting, the biometric system application, the absence of the entries. This is what a court did. What it meant is that for some of these judges, you needed only 2 other judges to agree with them, and the NPP would have won the election petition. Where else do you want to go apart from the court?
The law gives us rights that we can and have to exercise under the circumstances. The first is our freedom of expression to state our case like I've done here and help the world and the nation to understand and appreciate what happened during this election process.
Fair.
The second one is our constitutional right to demonstrate and protest against the stolen verdict,
Fair.
which is what we are doing on the streets and which we'll continue to do. The third one, like we've succinctly articulated, is our right to go to court via an election petition to challenge the results. And we have stated on public record that at the end of our audit into the presidential results declared, the leadership of the party would take a position on that based on several factors, whether or not we are sure that we will have justice and all that. So we will take a decision on whether or not we will go to court, and we will inform the public and the world accordingly. So that still remains an option.
So you understand? You understand?
It's still an option for us.
That except a court, the results as declared will not change.
Yes, to a large extent.
So what's the purpose of the continuing, you are entitled constitutionally, demonstrations and protests all over the place? What's the purpose?
Because you see,
end game, what is it?
The end game is that we want a change. We need to amplify some of the bad things, the wrong things that happen in these elections so that the right changes will happen. Those are things that you may not necessarily get from a court of competent jurisdiction. For example, the killing of our supporters. Posterity and the blood of those innocent people who died protecting, some of them who died protecting the sanctity of their votes, will forever speak against and work against the NDC. If we just go to courts, the court rules against us.
So you have abandoned your demand for an audit by the EC?
No, an independent audit into the EC's own declared results, because as we speak, the EC's own declared results.
Is it not a court that will order that to happen?
It's possible for a court to do that.
Yes.
But in a country where voices of conscience are strong, the country itself can call for an audit where it is manifestly clear that 1 + 1 in this case is 3.
There's a procedure followed in the elections.
Yes.
Haven't you gone past the procedure in law which allows the EC to do anything else, so that you would mount a suit and like the court did in 2013, the court brought in KPMG and asked them to audit the number of pink sheets.
You are very right on that. If you want the EC's declared results to be audited, one route, one way to get that done is through an order of the courts. But it doesn't also stop the media, civil society, and other stakeholders in this democratic experiment from saying that, hey, look here, you have declared 3 results for the 2020 presidential elections. All the 3 results are different. All the 3 results don't add up mathematically, and so come and do the right thing. So the two are not mutually exclusive.
What will be the basis of law upon which the EC will do that thing?
Article 23 of the 1992 Constitution
says what?
That places a responsibility on administrative bodies to exercise their discretion in a fair manner and not in a whimsical and capricious manner.
Okay.
If you have declared results and the results don't add up, the results are mathematically flawed.
The article you refer to, you are required to invoke the court to get that done for you.
But doesn't
by a judicial review.
But you see, you are doing your work as a lawyer, and you are absolutely right. If you were giving us legal advice, you will be 100% right. But let's also not forget that the EC as a state institution, funded with public funds, also has a responsibility to declare results that are mathematically accurate.
Thank you.
And not results that are flawed.
Professor H. Kwesi Prempeh, thank you so very much for your patience. I'll hear from the politician and then we come to you. Now, on the results you spoke about as to Gushegu, I have the Gushegu presidential election results summary sheet here. And the summary sheet is signed by 2 persons. Mumuni Abdallah for Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, Mohammed Baba for John Dramani Mahama. So it is not the case. And there is Baba Idrisu Yakubu, who is the EC officer, the returning officer.
Because the documents, let me clarify.
So I am using this pink sheet to state the fact that it is not correct.
Okay,
when
so let me
said
clarify.
In Gushegu,
so the document I refer to is the
Mm.
collation sheet. What has been sent to you is the summary sheet. This is where the additions are done.
Okay.
This is where the padding happened.
Thank you.
The summary sheet will not show this padding happening on the collation sheet.
I've made my point here.
So the two are different.
Afenyo, let's hear you.
Yeah.
So you have heard him?
Yes, I've heard him.
They seem to have basis.
No, that's fine. You're going to hear me in a moment. First of all, you had earlier put me to strict proof on a very important matter regarding violence in election, death.
Oh, you're going back there?
No, I just need to. You put me to strict proof.
You said the 6 deaths. No. We cannot guarantee,
yes,
we cannot justify it.
He said it has never happened before. That was his contention. Okay. I'm just giving you the evidence with respect. In 2009, just after the election, 5 MPP supporters were killed right in front of the police station, Abu Bulushi. We know about that fact. 2000.
Was it related to the election?
Yes. It was election violence. Yes, I'm telling you. It's a fact. It's there. 2, on this little girl as Savilogu, please, with respect, the AK-47 was retrieved from the candidate and a J3 rifle. As we speak, it is the candidate, your MP-elect, who is the suspect in that young girl's case.
I said that.
Yes, but I just want to repeat it. It's important because the impression was created that the system inflicted this and the blood of these people, etc. These are his words. 2004, NPP activists were killed. These are Abu Hanifa and Mohammed Idris, 2004, in Kumbungu by NDC activists here. Now the Tripone death, which was caused by a national security operative, it is important for the records to point out.
You should be saying new things. I have said this.
That the person was not even charged. I'm just
it was about shooting. It was
can we go to justification for the rejection of the results and why they should still be on the street rather than in a court or both?
Boss, we will come there. Now, Gushegu. The declaration sheet was signed at 1:23 p.m. Now, what my brother brought, he said he had a tally sheet. and that tally sheet, you are saying that collation, that's what you do the tally. You are saying that from that record, there were some mistakes. But 6 of your agents were at the collation center. Now, let me use a photo example. That one, I was there.
Right.
I was a counting agent because we knew there was going to be something untoward. So I was a counting agent for 5 polling stations. My executives were counting agents. Around 4:30, we took over our polling stations. We said, all the agents, go back. We would supervise counting. So we did. NDC candidate was not there. At one point, the constituency secretary of the NDC was my colleague agent. And he said, Honorable, you are a big man. I said, no. He said, go and rest. No, I didn't. At the collation center, we had 4 NDC people. That their director of elections, Lawyer Youngson, who was previously their candidate, one gentleman called Big Abos, and another. They were there. We did all the collation. When we were done, Lawyer Youngson objected. So we started all over again. Their candidate was not there. When we finished, the director of election, Mr. Atuboti, signed. We were done. 5:30 a.m. It's here. It's here. It's here. It's here. You know, 5:30. You see his signature? And our agent, Philip Dowuna, also signed. Then we started parliamentary. We went through all, and when we were done, the man signed. Meanwhile, 2 days after, we had a press conference. Complain of this pardon that they've detected, blah, 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 and all that. Meanwhile, at the region, Kwesi Dawood, the original communication officer, signed the original declaration sheet, accepting the result. Now, there is something I observed in Efutu 2012, 2016, and 2020. The NDC agent don't come to the collation center with pink sheets. I don't know of other constituencies. I'm speaking to the fact I know. They come there, so you see, Mr. Anochi gave us a data, some...
You mean Joe Anochi?
Yes, yes. Yeah. He gave us some training.
Right.
So we made sure that by 8 o'clock we had all our pink sheets. In fact, we divided the Futu into some zones. One will have a motorbike, a car somewhere. So you make sure that you get all the pink sheets. So within 2 hours, we had our pink sheet. So at the time I moved to the collation center with my team, I had all my pink sheet, and in fact, I had fed the headquarters with all the results. Right. And I had these with me. So anytime they mention, like what you were saying there, that form, the entry. Sammy, can you help me with that?
Yeah. Which one?
The entry, the one you use for the collation.
Right.
Yes, yes.
I'll get that.
Yes. So go ahead. We understand. Go ahead.
When
if they mention and the figure doesn't reconcile,
enter, they write. So who will say that? Thank you very much. So you see, the RO will mention 78. Then we'll mention the code. Then
RO
we'll do
is returning
the return officer. Then we will enter. What we realized was that the NDC people were not interested in pink sheets. They didn't have it. Oh no!
How did we get all these pink sheets?
Boss, wait, stop. Let's make a factual argument. It will help all of us.
But what is factual?
They didn't have.
Please go ahead.
They didn't have.
Don't interfere.
We had ours. So at the end of the day, all the signings were done. Now look at Ashanti region. Roger Jeffy was the one who signed, and I'm told that Madam Betty Maud was there. All your senior gurus were there. They looked at it, Roger Jeffy signed. Yeah. Then today you say that, before, and I'm told that before he signed, he cross-checked with the constituencies. He cross-checked. Your guys were on phone. They will cross-check with constituency. Look, Maza, you've lost the election. You've lost.
So stop this. So here's a point. Hold on. At this point of hold on. So Markin, you're saying that once their people were not, so to speak, vigilant or not prepared, were not as diligent as your guys did, and they signed onto those pink sheets, end of story.
I haven't said so. I am saying that, first of all, before you accuse the EC of having rigged, check your facts. If you are saying that, your officers didn't do a good job, and then you have seen some errors, put them out. You know, in the interview by President Mahama, former President Mahama, he said they are still auditing. We had the election, you see, the interview was about 3 days ago.
Yeah.
We had this election on the 7th of December.
Yeah.
You are exercising your right to protest, freedom of expression, etc.
Meanwhile,
3 days ago, your boss said you are still auditing. What then is your basis for attacking the EC for conducting a flawed election?
Okay.
What then is your basis for saying that the verdict has been stolen? In any event, you see, boss, some of their colleagues are also writing on social media that there should have been a runoff. Now you again realize that the NDC is no more talking about the presidential elections. So they are saying, oh, they had majority. And this majority started from 147.
That's the last bit we are going to discuss, so don't bring it in.
Right, okay, sure. So I am saying that if you have your facts, bring them out. You yourself, you are saying that, in fact, you are not done with your auditing. Look, you can engage KPMG or Pricewaterhouse or any of these auditing firms to do this forensic audit for you. Pick all the pink sheets. You don't need to go to EC. If you are talking about independent auditing, give it to them. Let them do the auditing for you. Then you can use it as a basis and go to court. But to say that, oh, EC should do audit what? EC has made a declaration. It has done the gazetting. Your duty then is to do your
gazetted on the 10th.
Yes. Your duty is to do your auditing. Which auditing is delaying? I don't know how you are doing the auditing.
9th, the date on the gazette notification, which I have.
Gazette
9th and published on the 15th.
Oh, I thought what we all have is on the 10th.
No, 9th.
Okay, thank you. That's okay. You move on. The essential point is that it's been gazetted.
You continue to say you are auditing. Therefore, you haven't said that President Mahama has won the election. You are telling the middle class, the educated, that you are doing auditing. You are telling the international media that you are doing auditing. Are you saying the same thing to your foot soldiers?
Okay.
You are telling the foot soldiers a different story. You are telling them that President Mahama, right. No more Jule.
Thank you.
President Mahama has not won because you are saying so to the international media.
Right.
You say you are auditing. If you know you are auditing,
deal with that auditing.
No. If you say you are auditing, you are checking the figures. No. Coach President Mahama.
I have said the same thing.
He said he's looking at it. They are checking it.
Right.
But you are telling your foot soldiers that adrible. What is the meaning of
so let's go to Professor H. Kwesi Prempeh. Hold on for me.
Just 5 seconds.
Professor H. Kwesi Prempeh. Prof, once again, thank you very much for your patience. Now we have the EC gazetted the results as in the presidential on the 9th, but there's a gazette notification dated the 10th. Should the NDC be continuing the way they have? And what do you also make of the presentation by Sammy Gyamfi, yes, as regards what they see must have gone wrong?
Thank you, Samson.
Right.
Elections, there are two kinds of infractions or irregularities that can occur with an election. One set of infractions and irregularities could be outcome determinative, which means that those irregularities and infractions could be on a scale that, in the aggregate might affect the outcome of the election. Then there's another set of infractions and irregularities that can occur in an election, which would, however, be just outcome, not outcome determinative, which means that in the aggregate, they would not affect the outcome of the elections. Now, both types of infractions and irregularities, if unremedied in some form, have a tendency to lead to some loss of trust in the integrity of the electoral process. However, in election adjudication, courts, the general principle in election law is that courts are interested, right, only in those infractions and irregularities that in the aggregate would be outcome determinative, which means that they could change the result one way or the other. And that's been the principle in election law, based almost universally, right? So you read the cases and they'll tell you, well, they would not change the results, right? So as I was listening to Mr. Gyamfi, you may well have evidence from pink sheets and other things. We've only been shown some sample. I do not know what in the aggregate, in all 275 constituencies, what they have found. But if they have found substantial evidence that in the aggregate can be outcome determinative, whether or not that pushes the president-elect's numbers below the 50 threshold, or pushes former President Mahama above 50, that is for a court of law to determine. So I think that it's appropriate to say that if you have found that scale of irregularities and infractions that in the aggregate can change a result, sure, then the court is the appropriate place to take your grievance. Now, the second, then you have to ask the question, what then happens to the first set of infractions and irregularities that are not outcome determinative? Do we just throw them away? What do we do with those? And I think that following from our experience with election grievances and protests and all of that, I think it would be appropriate to create a statutory channel, right, for those second set of grievances to be sent, which I would recommend that there should be an administrative process so that you can complain to the EC that, look, even though these are not outcome determinative, they result in a certain loss of trust in the integrity of the system. Therefore, we have brought these to your attention, and you must take some administrative measures to investigate these and remedy them. So that it would mean, for example, basically the EC looking over, asking its returning officers or presiding officers to explain themselves why these infractions happen and the like. But that's an administrative channel. But I think it's appropriate, based on what we have been experiencing from election to election, that we not gloss over this second set of infractions and irregularities, because oftentimes they are the ones that stoke the fire, right? They may not change the outcome, but they give cause for grievance. And I believe that if we haven't learned already from our experience so far, that's one lesson we ought to learn. That, yes, what a particular candidate might be aggrieved about may well not change the election outcome, but it gives cause for grievance. What do we do with those? If we do nothing, then we are inviting this kind of stuff, protest and all of that all the time. So I would suggest that, look, if Mr. Gyamfi and his party have evidence that in the aggregate suggests that they have, that scale of evidence, irregularities and infractions that in the aggregate would have changed the outcome, they should go to court. And that's the appropriate place, because that is the only relief. Only the court can grant the kind of relief they're seeking in that instance. But we should not also continue from election to election to election to gloss over the other kind of grievance, which is that which will not change the outcome. Right. I think that part of the reason we are in this battle, because over time we have never really established a process for dealing with those things, and then we move on to the next election. Right. So nobody is held to account. The EC officials who may have omitted to act or to follow the law or not, nobody held to account. They may be recycled back into the next election as returning officers and presiding officers. That's, I think, is a gap that we need to fill.
Right. The NDC has been...
that, it might actually take some of the tension out.
The NDC has been demanding that the Electoral Commission has the power and capacity to do something even before they took a decision that if they came to that a court should do something. The NPP in a previous situation also did a similar thing. We understand at one point they were successful at getting Dr. Afarijan to sit down through Peace Council immediately before a declaration to resolve the issues before the declaration was done. The declaration has already been done. In 2012, the declaration was done, where the court's 4 judges found as a matter of fact that they had actually been overvoting. As a matter of fact, that they had actually been overvoting. It was despite the fact that all persons had signed those pink sheets. So the NDC is arguing is that it doesn't matter that everybody has signed the pink sheet. Still, there could be a case to be made. Can the EC do anything now?
So I think that there is a case for having a, and that is one of the reasons why some of us were quite unhappy with the very, tight and rigid, tight deadline that the EC set itself to basically complete its work and declare results in 24 hours. Because we have to allow just, not a long, an open-ended window, but a very short one for certain clerical and other mistakes and other things to get resolved before declaration. And I think that, if that window were there, that administrative window were there to resolve some of these discrepancies and disputed kinds of issues pre-declaration, it would help. It would help. We could have a very short window for doing that. Once a declaration is made, unfortunately, the process, one part of the process has come to an end. And the second part being the adjudication, the grievance, resolution, one has kicked in. And at that stage, unfortunately or fortunately, you only have a judicial recourse. Now, but even that, what I was saying the first time is that we should still, and I think even if that statute doesn't require it, the EC should take an interest even in those cases that do not go to court or that go to court and fail to meet the legal threshold. So even if it went to court and it was established that in the aggregate, they would not have changed the outcome, we shouldn't just say, okay, that's fine, but that's the judicial result.
But why? Finally, and if I could get a minute's response, then we take a break and return for you to deal with one of the issues that you are very much concerned about the Goan area. We're talking about the parliamentary thing. The point is, if the EC has to do any auditing, to what effect? Supposing it did an auditing that revealed in favor of the NDC that, as they suggest, that, the NDC candidate had won. What was he supposed to do? Call back what he had done and say, I'm sorry, but it's Mahama who had won?
Only the courts at this point, basically, there is no self-correcting mechanism. If in the aggregate, the result would flip or would change, the EC doesn't have a post-declaration self-correcting mechanism that it could use.
Is that not the reason the EC should not be doing any auditing?
Well, but if it did, the EC can, at the conclusion of this process, I'm sure that the EC itself does some auditing and reflection of what it has done. And what I'm saying is that there should be a parallel or an add-on administrative process within the EC for it to check the competence and the work, integrity of the work that its officers at the subnational level did. Because if we don't do that routinely, if we don't just go through and say, why did you not fill this box? Why did you not? I'm not talking about party agents. I'm talking about EC officials. Why is this number like that on this and instead of that one. You know, so if what Mr. Jeffrey is saying, if he's saying there is padding, there is this, you know, the fact that, you know, there should be a process for the EC to take on that quite apart from the judicial process and be able to ensure that within its systems, going forward, these things do not occur. And if they found that some officers were culpable or didn't follow the law, and it was you know, an omission for which they could be held culpable, fine, then you do that administratively.
All right.
But I'm saying that we should not be in the habit of sweeping these things under the rug all the time, because it leads to these kinds of grievances that detain us needlessly. You know,
right.
The judicial process will take care of.
All right, let's take a break here. We will return to go to the Guan constituency and the question of 137 and 137 for each of the major parties in parliament. We'll be right back. You're welcome back. This is NewsFile. It's the most authoritative news analysis platform, and here on NewsFile we put Ghana first. My guests have been Afenyo, who's been re-elected, and